What's happening, monkeys? Welcome to NSFW 2.0 on WallStreetOasis.com. He's Eddie, I'm Midas, and today we will cover government spending and whether it will crater the economy, the SEIU's master plan to bankrupt JP Morgan, and Eddie's Omer Rosen exclusive interview. Starting off with government spending. Now, Eddie, your thread on government spending and whether it won't crater the economy or whether it will got over 100 comments in barely half a day.
Yeah,
it was pretty crazy, man. The opinions were flying around like cruise missiles, and I think the issue really reflects how far we've sunk in terms of our standards. Seems that our government-controlled economy is something that only serves to serve those in power until the next re-election. God bless the Keynesians and their Fisher-Price, my first printing press approach to life. To me, the question isn't whether government spending will crater the economy. I think we're past that point. The question is whether 100 years of government theft from the public to give to itself will be able to continue much longer. The reality that even my hard-headed ass is waking up to is that people outside of the circles of power in this country just don't have much money left. Who cares where the markets are going when most of the country cannot afford to be invested in them? Even if you're one of the few Wall Street guys coming up who actually makes it past the working stiff status, what is the point of being rich when you really can't enjoy it? Now, greed may be good, but surfing and turfing it up while your neighbors are eating shitburgers really isn't. When gas at the local pump goes up $1 in about 3 months, that is what's called hyperinflation, kiddies. And I do seem to recall someone writing about that in his first post of the year. So we won't talk about that.
Yeah, this isn't going to surprise a lot of you guys, but I'm pretty pessimistic about the levels of government spending. The fact is, though, I don't focus too much attention on the potential solutions to it. Some of our readers think that you can just vote the bums out, but that just replaces them with a new crop of bums. More important than voting, I think, is the necessity to prepare for the worst to make sure your family is protected in the event of, true hyperinflation. And the most direct way to avoid these kinds of hardships is just take yourself out of the picture. Some people these days call it geographic arbitrage. Our grandfathers would have called it getting the fuck out of Dodge. Some of the best advice I can give young people is to be ready and willing to bail as soon as the shit hits the fan. That's all I can say. Just have happy feet.
I got my Nikes ready, man. So, SEIU and JP Morgan. Former Service Employees International Union bigwig Stephen Lerner caused a global shitstorm this week when an audio recording of his game plan to bring down JP Morgan was released all over the web. Now, there haven't been any direct links to it, but you can bet the London Bridge is about to fall down scenario that we saw earlier in the week is also, at least in the least bit, connected. Now, Lerner's the kind of guy that I usually lambaste in my posts and rants, but this time I gotta give his side the benefit of the doubt because he makes one great point, which I make all the time too. It seems that the Dow Jones has become the new economy in the eyes of our economic powers that be. Absolutely nothing has improved since the market crashed in '08 except the market, which has been artificially reflated. This is good news for those of us with a few $100K up to be able to go around stock picking, but the words wealth redistribution make the hair on the back of my neck stand up. But still, as much as I rail against communism and socialism, this is not it. Socialism does not equal being human. Caring about people who are having a tough time is not communism. Watching people starve around you and telling them that they need to eat less is not capitalism. Now, I listened to Lerner's speech, and yeah, it's pretty damn inflammatory, but all he does is outline the same sort of bullshit strategies you guys work on during hostile takeovers and corporate proxy wars. All he's saying is that the workers need to turn the tables on their corporate masters, and frankly, he's right. Hate to break the news to you guys, but he's also sticking up for a lot of you. And at a time when the banks are creating new ways to squeeze people's nickels into quarters, I have absolutely no problem with the rank and file fighting back. I've said it before and I'll say it again. If you want to get past this crisis, if you want the country to move on, heads gotta roll. Eddie?
Yep. Hey, Midas, do me a favor real quick and make sure that this is still recording. Are we still on?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. All right, good. It's hard for me to fault Lerner without sounding like too much of a hypocrite. You know, I did, after all, present my own plan to destroy a too-big-to-fail bank, and that got a little bit of press. But the big difference in my mind is our different motivations. When I wrote my tank a bank plan, it was, first and foremost, it was simply an academic exercise. But it was to teach the banks a lesson and to force them into compliance with the old Glass-Steagall Act. You know, something our government evidently doesn't have the will to accomplish on its own.
No.
But Lerner's plan is all about redistributing wealth and making unions relevant again. And, you know, that's a ship that has long since sailed, and he knows it. In the end, I'll give you the same advice about the banks that I give you about the country. Get the fuck out. Move your money out of the too-big-to-fail banks and away from the greed heads who run them. And then you don't have to worry about it. As for crashing the stock market, like Lerner was talking about doing, I'm out of that too, so bring it on. That's all I got to say on it. I'm looking for a buying opportunity. Let's hope these jamokes can drive it below 7,500. I might have something to buy again.
I'm with you on that. So, Eddie, you're quickly becoming the Maria Bartiromo of financial blogging here with a little bit of fuzz added in.
Yeah, right.
The Homer Rosen piece was really great, man, and it really deserves further breaking down and analysis. Rosen's candid breakdown of how derivatives were used to rape foolish investors really should have been headline news throughout the country over the past few months. The biggest, most important event in American history, at least recently. And again, we're watching CNN bombings, and people's heads flying off while we're listening to a remix of Bombs Over Baghdad, And I still get confused between yields and prices sometimes. And anytime I see DBO1 written anywhere, I puke up a little bit in my mouth. So I can imagine how it is for the average investor when they've got, a much more sophisticated person than them explaining this to them not wanting to look stupid and feel that way. It's pretty technical stuff, so, if you think it's the job of the public to know this sort of thing, which is second nature to you who works in the business, you're fucking nuts. This is complex shit, I repeat. Your doctor doesn't expect you to know the Latin derivations of aorta and ventricle. If you need a bypass, he hooks your ass up and you get to live. That's it. That's the deal. That's why he makes the money. Plumbers don't sell you the fucking Suez Canal when you need some copper piping added on. The word fiduciary, which I repeat ad nauseum and it's like it flies over people's heads, is the holy fucking grail of working in finance, and the industry no longer even acknowledges its existence or meaning. Remember this, fellas. Shitting in your neighbor's backyard is the quickest and most effective way to give yourself cholera. And even though it's an old disease, we seem to be intent in going back in time when it comes to common sense. The further we supposedly progress. That's why I have to tip my cap both to you, Eddie, and to Mr. Rosen. And reluctantly, even Stephen Lerner this week for saying things that at least need to be discussed, if not enacted. So that's my 2 cents on that.
First, let me thank Omer again for giving WSO the exclusive on that piece. It was good, solid stuff on his part, and I'm glad it got the traffic that it did. The first time I read it, I was struck by how clever the deception was. It wasn't major, it wasn't in your face, but I'm guessing it was a steady source of profit for the desk. And you're absolutely right, Midas. There is an expectation of honesty when you're doing business with one of the nation's largest financial institutions. People are trusting by nature. It used to amaze me that people would send money to a voice on the phone who they'd never met, from 3,000 miles away based on 2 or 3 phone calls. I'm not sure people will ever trust big banks again, but I think they're caught in the trick bag of having no alternatives for some things, especially when it comes to derivatives.
Definitely.
I was no choir boy. I'm not going to pretend I was, but I took fiduciary responsibility seriously. At the very least, when I was recommending that a client take a stupid bet, I at least told him it was a stupid bet. But that's just me. Anyway, moving on to books. My book this week has nothing at all to do with Wall Street. It's dedicated to Rhythm, my brother-in-law's dog of 9 years who died yesterday. She was a great dog, and we're all going to miss her. So the book I'm recommending is one of the best books ever written on the bond between dog and man. The book is Merle's Door by Ted Karasote. Anyone who loves dogs will love this book. It's better than Marley and Me, which I also found enjoyable, and has a lot more in it about how to make sure your dog has an enjoyable life. So if you're a dog lover, or you have a dog, or you're even thinking about getting a dog, check it out. It's a great book. Midas?
I like the recommendation, but I disagree with you in one regard. Since the industry that we're a part of and discuss weekly has a whole shitload of fleas, a book about dogs is definitely adequate. But since we're discussing some muckraking this week, I think it's a good time to remind the guys of a great little book called The Jungle by Upton Sinclair, about 100 years old now. All you guys heard about it through grade school. I'm willing to bet that very few of you actually read it. Sinclair blew the lid off the Chicago meatpacking industry a century ago and single-handedly did more to extend American lifespans than any miracle drug or prosthetic. It's amazing how good meat can be for you when it's not stored in rat shit. And I think there's a correlation to be made to today's Wall Street somewhere in those words. I'll let you guys figure out where. So it's been great talking at you guys again this week. We'll see you next week when we turn 21. Until next time, stay classy, fellas.
Yeah, this is my last week of underage drinking on NSFW.
Make sure you catch yourself a 16-year-old while you still can.
Yeah. Be cool, guys.
Glad.